Welcome to The Happy Doc. My name is Taylor Brana. In this podcast and related website, thehappydoc.com, the goals are to inspire, develop knowledge, and provide tools to enhance your creativity, joy, and success as a health professional. Our guests provide their stories, tips, mindset, and much more, which have allowed them to succeed in such a demanding field. I'm so excited to introduce our next guest, Adeel Yang. Adeel is a leader in healthcare and education technology. Most medical students and residents will best know Adeel as co-founder of the company Picmonic, a visual storytelling platform that helps students remember vast amounts of information in less time. It's hard to find a medical student that has studied for the boards exams and hasn't heard of Picmonic. Please enjoy the interview, which includes topics such as how Picmonic started, how you can develop and create your ideas, Adeel's take on improving the healthcare system, and much more. So, without further ado, Adeel Yang.
So I actually grew up in Taiwan and came to the States when I was 14. I really, being brought up in more of a traditional Asian family, I was definitely told medicine was the path that I should be going on. And throughout high school and college, sort of in the back of my head, I always thought that I was going to do medicine, but really didn't discover my interest in medicine until I would say after college. I actually worked for a medical device and kind of biotherapeutics investment company where they invested in early stage, innovation and medical kind of technology. And that really piqued my interest because it opened my eyes to other opportunities in medicine, and that the creative side of medicine, the business side of medicine was something that I've never been exposed to before. So shortly after that, I decided that I wanted to go into medicine to help, foster innovation and to build businesses. And I think that then led to medical school, where I attended University of Arizona, where I also went to undergrad. And in medical school, 2 years into it, I started Picmonic with a classmate of mine because we, at first, were just trying to be creative with the way to study and to remember things better. And as you know, there's just a ton of information that you're supposed to learn and remember in medical school, and it's at times felt like it was humanly impossible to do. So what we did was we used to go to the gym together and hang out all the time, and we'd come up with these ridiculous stories and images to like help us remember the different bugs, drugs, and diseases that we had to master. And those stories and pictures we started sharing with some of our classmates, and we put it online, and we found that a lot of students really enjoyed it. So then we took one step further and actually developed a little software to be able to deliver some of these images and stories in a more interactive way. And that was the birth of Picmonic. And so from there, I actually took a leave of absence from school for about a year. We went out and we built a company, raised some grant money as well as some venture capital money. In total, I think we raised about $5 million, and then built a team of about 30 people and really grew the company to serving, hundreds of thousands of students around the world. And that was really, really exciting and kind of really solidified my passion for wanting to do something a little bit non-traditional. I dragged myself back, finished medical school, and then kind of went back into the business world with Picmonic. And then I recently started another company in digital health, basically using software technology and education technology to help patients understand instructions. So that's me.
Wow. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on, definitely. it's awesome to hear this story from you, and some points I want to highlight that you just spoke about really importantly. So early on, you kind of had this early upbringing in Taiwan, and you spoke about your exposure to to the entrepreneurial side with the medical technology. How do you think that part of your life really allowed this all to birth? It really sounds like this all stemmed from being exposed to that, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, when I was going through school, I mean, I did have a major in economics, but it wasn't really, business training, or I didn't go to business school. So to me, the concept of, um, how things worked financially, how to actually build a team, and all the stories you read about in the media about, founding companies, etc. I only thought I knew what it meant until I actually did it. But that piqued my interest when I, was working for this venture capital firm, and seeing how investing in early stage ideas and founders really helped them kind of create a company that can then go out and serve millions of people. And that
Yeah,
really, you know, opened my eyes to what I really wanted to do.
sure. So, like, from a medical student perspective, a lot of us are not exposed to this business side, investing side, creation side, and the possibilities of medicine. So, what are some methods or ways that, if someone has a great idea, they feel very creative, they're passionate, and they think this could be really big, how does how did you, in your example with Picmonic, go from idea to starting to really develop that and like know it was a hit and create this team? Like what were the actionable steps that if someone else wanted to recreate, they could really kind of get the ball rolling, so to speak?
Yeah, so something you alluded to, I kind of wish that um, medical education included, in its curriculum, even though it's already jam packed. But I still think that there's a lot of value in including um, kind of more creative classes that give people exposure to that side of medicine and the business side of medicine. But with that said, I think for most medical students, like you said, they, from the beginning, day one, it's really about getting through these blocks and
Yeah.
getting through these exams, and it almost feels like you don't have a chance to lift your head up and breathe. So to ask to do more is almost impossible. However, I do think that um, part of me, part of the reason why I was able to actually create Picmonic while I was in school is because I think that as most medical students, there are times when the creative juices start flowing, and
Hmm.
you have this idea, and the goal is to not kind of try to do everything at once, but to pace yourself and to actually, think about the idea fully in terms of a structure, like, how many people can this really help? How Meaning, how big is the market? Um, Thinking about, okay, if I were to do this, how much time will it really take me? And do I have to take time off from school? How do I manage the time commitment? I think is a big thing that thankfully I was kind of exposed to early on. So I was thinking about these things as the idea came about. Other areas are really surrounding yourself with people that have done it, advisors, mentors, other entrepreneurs. So in that, I think for medical students who have creative ideas, or get that moment of epiphany and wants to do something crazy out of this world, I think don't my suggestion would be to not burn out, to not try to do everything by yourself all at once, because that's typically how the fire kind of goes out. I think that what's really important is to leverage that moment of creativity and go talk to people that have done, have built businesses, or have patented ideas, or have taken innovation from, let's say, research or benchtop to bedside, and talk to those people and get them to help you manage the rest of the process, and then time manage, of course. Those are kind of the two things that I thought, in retrospect, was the reason why we were able to keep going.
Yeah, and I like that idea because I think often when you get inspiration or creativity and you know you have this like out of this world idea,
Mhm.
there's definitely this sort of, oh, we have to create it now, we have to go go go.
Yeah.
You get really excited, and your suggestion is almost not necessarily to lose the fire, but to tame the excitement
Yes.
and really manage that into a realistic, actionable sort of way of creating this project and to really bring it into fruition over time.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep, you said
That's
it right.
Yeah, that's a very that's a really important point. So with that being said, you discussed this idea of mentorship and finding mentors and immersing yourself with people that were going to be helpful. How did you kind of create that team? Did you already have it in place, or did you seek it out? And if so, what methods did you use to kind of secure that team?
Right. And that actually brought that point right there about seeking mentors. I think I'd love to just add one more thing about it, which
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, I remember when in the early days when call it a rookie move, we came up with the idea and we were so excited about it and we were so afraid that other people were gonna like run with it or steal it. That insecurity that comes with the beginning of most entrepreneurial ideas.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've learned to really, you know, throw away if you really want your idea to be successful. I think I've learned so much just from talking to people and sharing the idea and not being
Mm-hmm.
afraid to, disclose everything that you're thinking and then use that excitement to bring other people in and collaborate. We've heard it probably a million times now. Ideas are a dime in a dozen, and it's ultimately all about execution. So
Mm-hmm.
for every idea you have, I think there are millions of others out there. So there's really, in essence, nothing unique about any one idea, but the way you share it and execute on it is how you become successful. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the other aspect, is don't be afraid to share your idea. Um, and then about mentorship, the way or the way that we seeked out our mentors were, a lot of kind of talking to people that are immediate, kind of professors and people that every medical student probably knows, a professor or two that have done a lot of great things in his or her life. And so we started out by talking to some of our closest mentors and professors just at the medical school, which then led to more introductions, which led to more introductions and more introductions. And then for me, I also was very proactive about going online and finding networking opportunities within the city. Um, every major city seems to have, kind of these startup or entrepreneurial social activities and events. And so we
Mm-hmm.
started just enlisting ourselves and enrolling in all of these programs and events, which gave us an opportunity to access, some serial entrepreneurs who've actually built and sold companies. And then we kind
Mm-hmm.
of grew from there.
And I really like that idea of number one, using your community. That was a great point. And like specifically with professors at your school, because the professors and the students, that is your market in terms of Picmonic.
Right.
And then so you could reach out directly and get a sense of the vibe or the uh, the excitement of that group.
Hmm.
And then the reaching out to like these networks of entrepreneurs, what that gave for you guys was this ability to learn different aspects of business and also just like expand your ability to develop yourselves and gain different forms of knowledge and perspective. So I that's a great point that I definitely want to highlight from that the conversation. Um, in terms of Picmonic, and this is something that really got me excited about, interviewing with you guys, is the ability to, and again, this podcast is about enhancing joy. The great thing that you guys have done is you've enhanced the efficiency or the ability to retain a ridiculous amount of information in a short period of time using these pictures. How did you develop that concept further? Because it's not just medicine, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, so how did you almost, I guess what I'm asking here is how did that expand for you? What was your vision in terms of taking this product to the next level?
It's a great question. So when we started out, it was really just something that we wanted to do to help ourselves. And I think, some of the greatest ideas that became businesses have all stemmed from a very intimate personal experience or personal struggle. So um, I think when we developed it, it was based on my co-founder Ron, who had some experience in sort of learning and memory research and knew about some of these techniques, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what we did was we obviously took advantage of those technique, and knowing that there's scientific evidence backing its efficacy and effectiveness. So we took it, ran with it, realized that it worked for us. And then the expansion really happened after we've established some traction and success with medical students, that we realize, oh, nursing students are also struggling with similar topics, and they have to learn a lot of the similar kind of bugs, drugs, and diseases and procedures, etc. So it's sort of a natural progression that we started seeing some of the organic adoption from nursing students, from PA students, even from pharmacy students. So we almost allow the market to guide us into expanding this particular product and idea into other markets. In terms of the methodology itself, we've also iterated on it based on just startup 101 teaching of fail fast and iterate. You build a product, put it out there, and then as you start to collect data and feedback from users, they sort of tell you what's working and what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know, but we also, being can call us nerds. We love doing research and digging into the science behind all of this. So we actually conducted an IRB approved research study in partnership with Midwestern University in Arizona, and we put together a legitimate study comparing students using this particular method compared to students who just use their traditional PowerPoint delivered lecture notes. And we found a huge kind of statistically significant difference in the efficacy of using Picmonic and its methodology. So that was really exciting. And once we did that, there's sort of a research backing. We started iterating on some of the kind of more specific ways that we deliver the image. And then from there, we started expanding into more active learning, meaning how do we let anyone to be able to do what we do. So we started creating call it a Picmonic creation tool, where students can use our tools to develop their own Picmonics. And once you start gaining some traction with users, then you have the ability to experiment and improve upon the product. So
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, we got lucky with our first try at getting some users excited about what we were doing, and then from there we were able to build the momentum and grow and iterate.
Sure. And that's something I did want to comment in terms of your study. I can specifically still say I have quite a few of your cards memorized, and when I am on rotation and someone, for example, is asking me what the typical antipsychotics are or something, I can literally envision like haloperidol, which there's like a dog with a halo above his head,
Right.
or
That's awesome.
flufenazine. It's like a fluffy Nazi symbol. So like what I mean, like the these drugs and the cards, like they're goofy, and you have the image in your mind. You have it's not memorization per se. It's just like, oh, that's what was on the card. Like, this is simple. But then you sound ridiculously smart to anyone who doesn't realize you use them.
Exactly.
So it's like a win-win, and it's just so quick. So I definitely have to comment and say, like, yeah, they're great. And that makes sense. You were able to build the traction and then expand upon this already great idea that people really liked. That makes a lot of sense. To switch gears here, Adeel, what do you consider happiness? What is happiness to you?
Oh, that's a really good question. By the way, I applaud you for starting your site. I'm a big believer in your mission. I think that as I've experienced now through medical school, it's a tough road to be on, and often the game can get you down. And I think that what you're doing will hopefully elevate everybody's spirits. So for me, happiness is about finding a mission or a purpose that you can achieve and working hard to achieve it. And in that process, staying motivated, staying healthy, and knowing that you're making a difference in this world. That's where in the last 5 to now 7 years, have realized, every day I wake up thinking about the companies that I'm building and the people that I'm affecting, and I feel very motivated and driven, and it allows me to focus. And at the end of every day, like I feel happy that I've done something meaningful, and
Sure.
that's well, for a limited lifespan that I have so far, I've definitely experienced that, and I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one thing that you said there that I just want to poke into a little bit more is you said as you're working on this mission, this greater vision or idea, so to speak, you said to maintain being healthy. So one of my questions for you is, what's your daily routine like? Because I've noticed that successful people, motivated people, they tend to have, certain skills or work in their daily routine that really allows them to succeed. So what kind of traits or things are you employing to make sure that you're on top of your game?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was recently reading an article about this, and there definitely is a pattern for uh, people who are in the entrepreneurial space and are able to kind of juggle some of these high stress uh, kind of tough schedules and being able to stay on top of it. So for me, I've learned a lot from other people who've been able to be productive and effective with what they do. So some of the things that I've learned and I'm actively doing now is, always wake up early. I think that's one of the key things that's changed in the last like 3 to 4 years, where it's really boosted my productivity. So wake up early, and I actually get a very short but efficient workout session in. It usually wakes me up, and it's my natural caffeine for the rest of the day. I actually weaned off of coffee. Back in medical school, I was drinking coffee every day, but I've finally weaned off coffee. I actually wake up, I exercise, I drink a lot of water. It sounds very simple, but it's definitely what keeps me going every day. And then I actually try not to uh, kind of sit in one spot for more than 4 hours, because I've noticed consistently my productivity goes down when I'm staring at the screen, sitting in one position for longer than 4 hours. So what I do is I actually and I also always try to have kind of food or interaction with people during lunchtime. I think that's been really healthy and productive for me. So I always schedule lunch meetings, or I schedule ways to actually utilize time to engage people. And then during the afternoon, I actually stay pretty focused from after lunch to about 4 or 5, and then I get another workout session in. My workouts are usually not no more than 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and then of course, by then, you wind down, and I do a lot of reading before I go to bed, and then that's it. I'm a pretty routine kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've noticed just studying successful people is the early morning workout or some form of way to get that early morning energy, so to speak. It really sets you up well. With those habits in mind, are there any also tools that you use, favorite tools?
Yeah, I think I use quite a bit of tools, mostly related to the companies that I'm working with, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
one tool that has become sort of central to my life now is Slack. We use that for pretty much everything we do. It's a communication tool for companies that have different projects going on, different people working on different projects, and also just a way to streamline the different types of conversations you're having with different people. And I think I've been using that, and it's been, I mean, for the past 3 years, I want to say it's been incredible. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then personally, I use a lot of, I have an iPhone. I use a lot of sort of Apple apps to keep me organized, reminders for anything personal. So I try to keep kind of my personal to dos a little bit separate from the company to dos. With the company, they have task management tools like Asana is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And with another company, there's a tool called Podio. But those are tools that are more specific for managing, company teams. Whereas personally, I use, the reminder tools on my phone. I also have, um, obviously, kind of checklists that I build for myself to make sure that I'm staying on top of um, my own kind of schedule. But other than
Sure.
that, nothing else, nothing.
Nothing too fancy.
Nope.
All right. Well, that's okay too. And sometimes, actually, you'd mentioned this earlier. Sometimes you just got to do the basic things really well, and it doesn't have to be, a secret per se.
Yep.
So that's great. Um, what would you tell a younger Adeel? Maybe let's go back, I don't know, 10 years ago. What are some, things that you've picked up along the way that maybe a younger student or someone going into this process should really keep in mind to really elevate their success and joy in the field of medicine?
Yeah, that's a good question because um, I think that the advice I would give to myself would probably be different than the advice I would give to someone who's about to enter medicine for the sake of becoming a physician. I think I'll start with myself. The advice I would give for myself is I think I definitely regret a little bit of chopping up my medical education into sort of pieces because I took a leave of absence to build a company and had to really force myself to come back and finish it. And in that process, it was a messy process. Um, a lot of administrative hassles, etc. And I think that looking back, I would have told myself to stay real focused. Finish one thing before you start another. I think that uh, with medicine, it's definitely one of those fields where once you kind of get away from it for a little bit, it's harder to get back into it. So that's the advice I give myself, a younger deal, if you will. The advice I would give just any kind of medical student going into, because if you say 10 years ago, that's right when I'm applying and getting ready for medicine, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd probably say, or actually, no, 10 years ago, I'm just about to finish college. So I would say another advice I give myself is actually nowadays the world is run by software. I would have told myself to go and learn more about coding and be a little bit more technology savvy. But that's just a personal advice I'd give myself.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone going into the medical profession, I think the advice I give myself or that person would be to really, really try to explore other areas, other professions, um, and talk to people that are in other professions, because I think most of us going into medicine, thinking back, have been a little bit naive, if you will, of what medicine is and what being a doctor is like. And there's a lot of glorifying, right, the profession, when in reality it's a pretty tough job, and it comes with a lot of sacrifices. And I think if you have the right expectation early on, and then made the right decision to then go into medicine, I think you'd have just a much happier um, outlook and much happier journey. And I think that the friends that I have who maybe have or had a different expectation of what medicine and as a career looks like are the ones that struggled more with happiness throughout medical school and their residency training, etc.
Mm-hmm. Right, like the dissonance between their expectations and what the reality was of the situation.
Yes.
Understood. Yeah, that's those are some great tips. Definitely want the students and to reflect on that, especially agree with the technology aspects and knowing what you're getting yourself into is definitely definitely a good point. Although arguably speaking, sometimes you don't really know until you experience it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. But I think, thinking back, people used to tell me, "Oh, make sure you go and shadow physicians," right? And it always felt more like a chore than it was something that I really needed to do. If you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, like it felt like,
Yeah.
oh, of course I'm going to go shadow a physician and maybe try to get a letter of rec out of that person. But I now, well, midway through medicine, I realized that, man, that could have been the the life defining opportunity if I had realized how important it was, because you don't really know what you want unless you experience it, like you said. But if you talk to enough people and the right people, and this happens in business as well, like to really understand what people want as a product, to try to figure out what you want to do with your life, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least talk to, you know, 10, 20 people who are in that profession and really,
Mm-hmm.
objectively try to assess whether or not the feedback is positive. If a lot of the physicians I talked to, I didn't talk to that many, but even the ones that I talked to, a lot of them were, I think now thinking back, trying to communicate with me what medicine really is, but because I was just like, oh no, whatever you say, I'm already set on applying to medical school. Like that's I I blocked it out. I blocked out an opportunity to really try to understand and learn what it means to be a practicing physician.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great point. So for any, younger students or even medical students, it's not too late to reach out to different doctors in different fields and get a taste of what life is actually like and learn from those experiences without necessarily being directly involved. That's a really great point. This is kind of a big question, but I definitely want to ask it because I think it's an important one. A lot of people say that, we're having a healthcare crisis, things are going down a more negative direction. There's a lot of issues with our healthcare system. What are your thoughts on how we might elevate the space, create solutions, make things more efficient, streamline it, and allow doctors to be more joyous in medicine?
Okay, yeah, let's actually start with the bigger picture, the policy scale. I think that, um, like you said, there's a lot of changes happening. There's a huge transition right now from fee for service to value based medicine, bundle payments, and I think it's creating the right kind of incentives for people to focus on quality of care rather than the number of patients you see. I think that policy will continue and it will improve a lot of the workflow issues and the pressure that we're seeing that physicians are facing, which is I got to get through 30 to 40 patients in my clinic to be economically viable, and I can only spend 12 minutes per patient. That's a problem that's been around for ages, and I'm excited to see where that goes. And I don't think the new administration coming in is going to make a change there, because everything I read, that policy is staying. Um, in terms of like what else, I think the government, or let's say doctors who are in the position of being able to make policy changes can do. I think there's a huge problem with um, the residents being underpaid, being overworked. I think that's something that a lot of people have been trying to push for, but everything I know about the Accountable Care Act still even pressures residents even more. I think it's pushing a lot of pressure downstream, and it's not helping, let's say, people wanting to get into this profession. I think that there's the bigger problem should be, how do we increase the number of residency slots? How do we increase and in turn create more doctors to meet the demands that's currently in need in the world, or in our country? And that has to come from the very top, right? So from my perspective, if the doctors all can agree that more productive residents, more residency positions, and more fair pay for the residents are going to create better doctors and incentivize more gifted students to want to go into this profession. So there's that.
Yeah.
On an individual level, I think it's really, really important that uh, people don't see medicine um, as a as a as a chore or a job, or a game, because that's something that personally, going through medicine, I've seen happen a lot, where um, sometimes people make decisions based on, let's say, their test scores, or they make decisions based on, oh, I need to get a better evaluation, or they make decisions based on, oh, this is how much I need to do in order to meet kind of the financial incentives, etc. I think on an individual level, if people can really understand that, medicine is not a career or a job you go into to like amass an enormous amount of wealth. That's just not the case. I think that there are other professions that allow you to do that if that's really what motivates you in life. I think um, the right attitude, obviously, is going into medicine to, um, devote a lot of your life towards improving the lives of others. And the more we have people that think that way, I think the better as a whole this profession and this working environment will improve.
So really, really, and a lot of interviews I've spoken to in the past have stated, is this a calling or not? You know,
Yes.
and I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And those people who kind of went into it with the wrong intentions may then be steered, or have that incongruency what we were talking about before in terms of expectations versus reality. Um, so yeah, that's definitely a great point. Specifically, in your realm, you do a lot with technology and software. What out of curiosity, what are some new technologies you're really excited about? I know you described a company you're working with, but what are some of the technologies you think will be really elevating the space in terms of healthcare and changes we might see in the future?
Right. So there, I guess we can start with the education technology industry, and then we can talk about health technology.
Sure.
Both industries have been really exciting to watch. A lot of investment dollars going in, a lot of attention, and there seems to be a huge shift now with the industry and elevating kind of the importance of innovation in both of these industries. So, with education technology, I guess it's not new, but it's definitely gaining a lot of momentum and growing, is the concept of personalized learning and adaptive learning, which to put it simply, is using technology and smart algorithms and machines to be able to kind of detect on an individual level how well you are doing, how well you are learning, and then deliver the information to you in a way that's tailored to your needs. So that's happening a lot in both the K-12 space and now starting in the higher education space. Not happened enough in the medical education space because, as you can imagine, medical education is sort of this really ancient, movable rock, right? Where
Yeah.
curriculums has been established for decades. We're still going into the anatomy lab. I mean, there's tradition; it's hard to break. But I think there are actually a couple of companies kind of heading in that. I don't know if you know osmosis. They're using interesting technology and space learning algorithms to help students kind of better find information that's more important to them and can help them specifically. But I think personalized learning and adaptive learning is a really exciting technology to watch as it grows across the industry and into higher education and medical education. And of course, the idea that you have to learn the same way that the student sitting next to you does is just nowadays a complete fallacy, and we all know that's not true. So I'm excited to see more blended learning where and flipped classroom models where students can learn on their own with their own style and whatever pace that they need to do, and then still have opportunities to come into the classroom and interact with professors, to ask questions and to practice more kind of interactive skills. So I think that model also is a new innovation that I think is really exciting to watch. Of course, there's all these devices and tools now available to learners on the go, right? So that's really exciting with mobile technology. From a healthcare standpoint, wow, there's been a huge wave of innovation and investments going into digital health, both in terms of obviously the wearables. So think about everything now from things you can wear on your wrist, things you can wear, on like as part of your clothes, your things that are implantable. And what's happening now is that because cloud computing and how data is being collected is so advanced now that I think we're just catching up to the potential of the data and what we can do with that data. So what I mean by that is, imagine if now all the people with cardiac diseases are wearing wearables that are monitoring their heart. That data right there used to be, if there's an event, let's go and do something about it. But I think we're coming to a very exciting time where, thousands and thousands of patients generating, millions of data points every day are allowing us to actually take all of that data and run, artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms to start to identify patterns and correlate the patterns to the ultimate outcome of the patients. And that predictive analytics ability is going to completely transform the way we think about preventative care, the way we think about avoidable cost, and the way we think about interfering or helping patients with their adherence. So what I do for the second company called Medumo is we actually have a platform that delivers instructions to patients via simple email and text message. And the patients through text message and email can actually open up additional information and material about what they're supposed to do at the right place, right time. And then they can interact with that content, and then we're able to collect data and then use that data to predict whether or not the patient is going to successfully complete the treatment, complete the preparation for their procedure, or with their post-op and follow-up instructions that they're able to actually carry through and not have a potentially life-threatening adverse adverse outcomes. So really exciting innovation from a data standpoint happening all throughout the healthcare space. And then, of course, how people are taking advantage of those using AI. I think this is the next phase of innovation we're going to see.
That's amazing. And I really like the concept of the patient having the instructions, all through access with their phone, because that really, maybe they misheard the doctor during the live meeting, but later they can just check through their phone and gain information. It's just more accessible. It's a great way of, not necessarily having them completely. Obviously, it's effective to have them reteach you the information you explain them, but then they can have that reference later. That's a great way of bridging any lack of understanding. With that being said, what resources, whether it be books or mentors or blogs or videos, who do you follow? Who inspires you, and who would you recommend people like looking into to really elevate their ability to kind of create and be inspired and learn essential tools that they can utilize?
That's a good question. So obviously, I'm a little bit more in the business side and the startup side. So there's a lot of
Sure.
startup specific kind of blogs and mentors and people
And
to
there might be
follow.
listeners who are, more apt to look in that direction.
Yep,
So
yep,
from that.
absolutely.
Hmm.
So from kind of what I've been doing lately is there are definitely a few people that are pretty well known in the startup world that I follow, and organizations as well. I think Y Combinator is one that I think people have heard of before. It's an incubator that's based out of San Francisco that have been sort of the early incubator and investor in great companies like Airbnb, and I think following their blogs and their posts and their podcasts, I think has been pretty exciting. There's also a couple in Boston. One is called Pulse Mass Challenge. They they're an accelerator specific for digital health. Um, for me, it's really it's staying in tune with what's happening in the healthcare industry. So there are a couple of kind of, I guess, Twitters that I follow, and blogs from the accountable care organizations and the policymakers that are more affiliated with the government that come out with new reports and new kind of policies constantly now, it seems, because of the transition happening in the healthcare space. And I definitely think that for me it's staying in tune with the news, staying in tune with what's happening in my space, which is digital health. But I really enjoy subscribing to some of the startup podcasts uh, helping um, that are helping founders get through some of those tough times. Some of the founders that I look up to, Ben Horowitz, and then of course everybody's favorite, Elon Musk, and then the other one that I really personally admire is Tony Hsieh, who's kind of one of the founders of Zappos. So those are some of the people that I follow, and some of the resources that I use. And then in the medicine space, I think it's more specific to the different specialties and fields, but um, I'll defer that one to people who are in the medical specialties and practicing.
Sure. Well, those are great resources, and I hope people will definitely look those up. Give me or describe an inspiring moment during your medical school career that really got you excited and inspired you.
So I think for me it was I had a mentor in medical school. His name is Dr. Rappaport. He's a very beloved professor and mentor for many of almost every medical student that I know that went through University of Arizona. And I remember even after years of being a surgeon, being an educator, and now he could easily be enjoying life and not doing what he does. He has this little office in the back of the building, doesn't mind it at all, and you know uh, interacts with the students on a daily basis. And I remember him taking me to an offsite clinic that he goes to practice and to volunteer. Really, it's a clinic for sort of addicts and um, very underserved population. And I just remember one time, you know, going to that clinic with them and realizing that that's what calling really means. Like he exemplifies, what I would want every medical student to have, or want every doctor to have in terms of the passion and perception towards medicine and treating patients. I think that was a moment of inspiration for me that uh, every time I think about how tough medicine is, I think about Dr. Rappaport and then what he still does on a daily basis. And it just, puts everything into perspective.
That's amazing. So you had a really great example through school. Yeah, and I think we all have that one professor or
Yeah.
physician who really did that for us, and probably one of the reasons we went into medicine in the first place. Um, and then in closing, what message do you have for the students, the residents, the physicians who are listening?
So I think my advice would be that medicine is a tough road. My wife is still in residency. Some of my closest friends are still in training, and when I talk to them, they're always very curious about what I do because I'm on a very non-traditional path, building companies that are in the healthcare space, but not seeing patients on a day-to-day basis, reporting to work. And I think the best advice I can give is that the grass is always greener, right? When you're on this really tough path of medicine, the grass is always greener. You look at people who are not in medicine, and you start regretting or thinking about, oh, what I could have done this differently, or I could have done that differently. And I think being on the other side of the fence, I sometimes look at medicine as, man, I wish I'm seeing patients. I wish, I'm still in this environment where every day I have a chance to do a little bit of good that's predictable, that I have a very trusted skill set that would be valuable to people. So the grass is always greener. And I think the only advice I can give is that, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel, right? This is for the medical students, for the residents. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and that don't keep staring at the light and wanting for the tunnel to be over, but to actually be open minded to uh, kind of enjoy the journey. And uh, it's okay to pause for a second if you're too stressed out, or it's okay to try something new. It's okay to take a year off, and do research, or do something you want to do, start a company, or explore an idea with a mentor about potentially an innovation that could be world changing. So I think it's the advice I give is, don't let the tunnel define your life, and have an open mind, and harness the creativity, and talk to people, and take breaks. And then for the physicians, it's, remember the little people.
That's great advice. I really love that, and I hope people that are listening really take that in. That, yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to that one again. So with that being said, this is Adeel Yang, Picmonic co-founder. An absolute pleasure to have you on, and you are a true inspiration. You have great wisdom, and I'm sure people listening in will get a lot out of that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening into this episode. It was a blast to record. If you have any comments or feedback, send me a message to any of my channels. The Facebook page is www.facebook.com/thehappydoc. The Twitter account is thehappydoc1. The Instagram account is thehappydoc1. You can send me an email to thehappydoc1@gmail.com. And now I have something to ask of you. If you are with my mission of elevating the space of medical care and the medical community, if you are with my mission of elevating the positivity that is within the space, then please comment, like, and share this material. And please tune in to the new episodes, your weekly dose of joy, every Sunday. Take care.